Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Dana Myatt, and I'll be taking Dr. Joe Mercola to task over an article he recently published. This article is one of the most scientifically unsupported pieces of pseudoscience that I've seen in quite a while. I certainly expect better from Dr. Mercola. I felt compelled to make this video in order to alert you to some recent junk science that Dr. Joe Mercola, a major figure in holistic medicine, has foisted upon his readers. Dr. Mercola's recent article is an example of why I remind you to look for proof when claims are made. Do your due diligence. Verify claims. Check references. Because at the end of the day, if you make a poor choice or fall for a scam because you didn't do your homework, you are the one who will suffer. There's a lot of misinformation and outright lies on the internet. Be careful. I have two objectives in this video: to show you how to critically evaluate health and medical information, more like a prudent scientist than a gullible layman, and two, I want to warn you about Dr. Mercola's recent junk science. His article is a classic example of bad science, fear-mongering, and propaganda, and I want you to see why this is so you don't fall prey to this or any other junk science. Many of you are familiar with Dr. Joe Mercola. He authors the largest circulation holistic health newsletter in the world. Dr. Mercola has published a number of good articles on topics like the dangers of mercury, vaccines, fluoride, and the underhanded dealings of big pharma and big government. He's also introduced a lot of people to holistic medicine that wouldn't otherwise know what it was. A lot of Dr. Mercola's articles are supported by some degree of proof, and herein lies the problem. His good science makes his bad science much more dangerous because now thousands of people who read his newsletter trust everything he says without doing any fact-checking. Dr. Mercola could tell a bald-faced lie and many people would never question it. He recently published an article titled, "Does your supplement contain this potentially hazardous ingredient?" Here's the short course on this article. First, he condemns a safe, natural ingredient widely used in nutritional supplements without citing any credible proof. Next, he tells us to buy his product because he doesn't use this supposedly dangerous ingredient. Now, if he's really onto something and has proof, this could be powerful information. But if he's not onto something, then this is hucksterism in its highest form. As you'll see, his article doesn't contain any references to substantiate his claims. I'm deeply disappointed. This is a thinly veiled sales pitch disguised as breakthrough science. Let's see why. Before we start, there's a good lesson plan online titled "Recognizing Types of Propaganda in Advertising." This curriculum is intended for high school students, but it's worth reviewing at any age if you want to learn to be a well-informed healthcare consumer. We won't look at it now, but I encourage you to review this page later. Mercola starts right off with phrases designed to create reader bias. The article says, "It's common knowledge that drugs, vitamins, supplements contain more than just the active ingredient, something to encapsulate them, producible by a manufacturer in massive quantities. U.S. supplement makers add flow agents. Their only purpose is to keep ingredients from sticking to equipment during mixing and compression. This gives the impression that most supplement manufacturers are huge. Note the massive quantities, and they only care about quick and dirty mass production. This may be true for some, but remember that Mercola, with the largest holistic health newsletter in the world, may also be one of the largest supplement manufacturers. Does he want us to believe that other manufacturers use mechanical encapsulating equipment, but his supplements are somehow made by hand or manufactured differently than everyone else's? Next, the supposedly dangerous ingredient is revealed: magnesium stearate. Magnesium stearate is a flow agent, but its main purpose is to ensure a consistent dose in each capsule, not just speed manufacturing. Magnesium stearate helps prevent individual ingredients from sticking to each other and also from sticking to the encapsulating machines. Without a consistently homogeneous mix, the amount of ingredients can vary widely from capsule to capsule or tablet to tablet. Companies that don't use flow agents are more likely to have inconsistent doses in each capsule or tablet. This aspect of quality control is so important that the FDA is said to be considering the issue as part of their new Good Manufacturing Practice guidelines. What this means is that in the future, all manufacturers may be required to use a flow agent to ensure consistency. Flow agents are that important for quality control. In the third paragraph, Dr. Mercola claims that magnesium stearate is a potentially harmful additive that can cause possible harm to your intestines, preventing the proper absorption of nutrients. Here is Dr. Mercola's reference list. He doesn't offer a single reference to support those claims. We'll be looking at his reference list in more detail later, so you can verify this for yourself. Next, we get to the big claim, the supposed smoking gun that Mercola reveals to us in this article. He says, previous research has shown that stearic acid suppresses T cells, your natural killer cells, and can cause the collapse of cell membrane and ultimately can destroy cell function. Wow! If this is true, then Mercola has really dropped a bomb, because many consumers rely on supplements containing magnesium stearate. Before you panic, let's look at the references in support of this claim. I should have said reference in the singular because there is only one study cited. Here it is in Mercola's reference list, and here is how it appears on PubMed, the U.S. National Library of Medicine's reference library. This is where doctors and scientists go to read the scientific studies and find out what was really said, not just what someone claimed was said. You can go here too to check out references, and I encourage you to do so. Let's look at this study. It was performed in 1990 and has not been repeated. The study was done in vitro, meaning in a test tube or petri dish. It's well known in medicine that many phenomena which occur in a test tube do not occur in the human body. For example, thousands of substances have anti-cancer properties in a test tube, but very few actually work well in humans. But most important is the fact that Dr. Mercola omits. This study used T cells from mice. This isn't mentioned in the summary. You'd need to read the full article to learn this. Mouse T cells lack the enzyme that converts stearic acid into oleic acid. Here's the entire study. When mouse T cells were exposed to high levels of stearic acid in a petri dish, they developed a toxic buildup. Human T cells have the desaturase enzyme that converts stearic acid to oleic acid, so human T cells don't develop the same toxic buildup when exposed to stearic acid. The study that Mercola cites only proves that stearic acid is toxic to mouse T cells, which lack the enzyme that human T cells contain. It proves nothing about the toxicity of stearic acid in humans. In summary, one study, in a petri dish, never repeated, using mouse T cells which can't process stearic acid like human T cells can. There's no bombshell here. Next, Dr. Mercola calls magnesium stearate a chalk-like substance, conjuring images of rock-like material caking the lining of one's intestines. Even if you did eat chalk, it wouldn't form a buildup in your intestines. Your digestion would break it down to its mineral components. But magnesium stearate is definitely not a chalk. Chalks are soft, stone-like materials, including things like calcium sulfate, calcium carbonate, calcium oxide, titanium dioxide, and magnesium silicate. Magnesium stearate, on the other hand, is a salt containing approximately 96% stearic acid, which is a saturated fat. The other 4% is magnesium. Chalks are combinations of minerals, but magnesium stearate is mostly saturated fat. How could a fat be a chalk? The claim that magnesium stearate is a chalk, or even chalk-like, is false. Let's look at the biofilm claim. Dr. Mercola says that magnesium stearate stimulates your gut to form a biofilm, and a biofilm is what you see when you lift the lid of your toilet reservoir. He says that biofilms are sort of a sludge lining that acts as an effective barrier to absorption. Once again, he doesn't provide a single reference to support this claim, and I know why. That's because there are no references to support this claim. Like the big difference between chalk and fat, a biofilm is not the same as the so-called soap scum you might find in your toilet tank. A toilet tank film or bathtub ring occurs when hard water containing calcium or magnesium reacts with fatty acid in soap to form a so-called soap scum. Humans get significant amounts of magnesium, calcium, and fatty acids, the ingredients in soap scum, from diet, but we don't form soap scums in our bodies because our digestive enzymes and acids break them down. A soap scum is not a biofilm, not even close. Biofilms are layers of bacteria or yeast and the gel-like substance they secrete. They tend to be antibiotic resistant. They are ugly and slimy and dangerous. And if Dr. Mercola has a biofilm in his toilet bowl, I definitely advise that he fire the maid and get a new whole house water purifier, because biofilms don't ordinarily live in toilet tanks. Dr. Mercola says that magnesium stearate stimulates biofilm formation in the gut, but he doesn't provide a single reference to substantiate that claim. I couldn't find any reference to substantiate it either. What I did find are studies which show the opposite. Stearic acid actually helps prevent biofilms. So, the biofilm definition and the claim that stearic acid causes biofilms has no scientific basis of support. Now let's take a look at the supposedly evil magnesium stearate. It does sound like it could be a synthetic space-age chemical, but it isn't. Magnesium stearate is a simple salt composed of two common substances that we consume every day, magnesium and stearic acid. Magnesium stearate contains one molecule of magnesium and two molecules of stearic acid. The molecule is held together by ionic bonds, the definition of a salt, that break apart easily in acid, the condition found in the human stomach. When we consider magnesium stearate, we must consider its two parts, magnesium and stearic acid, because that is what magnesium stearate breaks down to in the human digestive tract. By the way, this is all basic chemistry, but if you're not familiar with chemistry, it might be easy for someone to bamboozle you with pseudoscience. Let's look at the two parts of magnesium stearate. First, magnesium. Magnesium is an essential mineral. According to the National Institutes of Health, magnesium is the fourth most abundant mineral in the body and essential to good health. It is needed for more than 300 biochemical reactions in the body. Also, according to the NIH, most adults don't get enough magnesium from diet. Magnesium is an essential mineral and one that is commonly deficient. Dr. Mercola doesn't say anything about the magnesium portion of magnesium stearate. And remember that one Petri dish study he cited? That study refers to stearic acid, not magnesium stearate. So it appears that Dr. Mercola is claiming that stearic acid is the problem. Let's take a look at stearic acid. Stearic acid is a saturated fatty acid. and one of the most common saturated fatty acids found in nature. Stearic acid is also found in many foods, including many healthy foods. People concerned about the minute amounts of stearic acid in supplements should know that the daily adult intake of stearic acid from food averages about 7,000 milligrams a day, but a person taking 20 vitamin caps containing 1% magnesium stearate would take in under 96 milligrams of stearic acid. That amount of stearic acid from supplements is about 1.3% of the daily adult intake. But here's the kicker. Magnesium stearate is considered safe for humans at levels below 2,500 milligrams per kilogram per day. Let me help you with the math. That equates to 170,000 milligrams per day as a safe dose for a 150-pound adult. Dr. Mercola has praised the benefits of foods high in stearic acids on numerous occasions. In fact, he sells foods high in stearic acid, including coconut oil, beef, chicken, salmon, cheese, and chocolate. Remember, Dr. Mercola referenced only one study suggesting a negative effect of magnesium stearate, and that study was actually about stearic acid. We saw why that one study is far from proof that stearic acid is dangerous. Done in a petri dish, never repeated, mouse T cells metabolize stearic acid differently from human T cells because they lack an enzyme. However, in vivo, meaning in real humans, stearic acid is shown not only safe, but actually healthy. Stearic acid lowers lipid peroxidation without raising triglycerides or cholesterol. A large body of trials show stearic acid is cholesterol neutral, and stearic acid has beneficial effects on thrombogenic and atherogenic risk factors, prompting one researcher to suggest that the food industry might wish to consider adding stearic acid in place of palmitic and trans fatty acids to foods. Dr. Mercola actually agrees with the health benefits of stearic acid and has written about this many times. To summarize, the preponderance of evidence not only shows that stearic acid is safe, but actually healthy. Now let's look at the contamination claims. Mercola says that stearate is commonly sourced from cottonseed oil. This crop is genetically engineered, and even when it's not, cottonseed oil can have high levels of pesticide residues. Stearate is often sourced from cottonseed oil, although the stearic acid I use is from palm oil. And yes, cotton can be a GMO crop, often high in pesticides. But here's some critical information that Dr. Mercola leaves out. Even if the sourced cottonseed oil is contaminated, the finished product, stearic acid, is so highly purified that contamination isn't an issue, like taking dirty water and running it through a water purifier. That's what it means to purify something. Cottonseed-derived stearic acid is highly purified, and the final stearic acid far removed from the original, possibly contaminated source. While we're on the topic of inactive and potentially contaminated ingredients, let's look at Dr. Mercola's multiple. Dr. Mercola uses cellulose in his multiple. Cellulose is a common inactive filler in nutritional supplements. Since the pot is calling the kettle black, let's look at cellulose. As a food-grade additive, cellulose is obtained either from wood waste or cotton waste. If I wanted to use propaganda techniques to defame supplements containing cellulose, I'd say that cellulose comes from either wood pulp, also known as sawdust, or to quote Mercola on cotton, genetically engineered, high levels of pesticides cotton. I could also point out that cellulose is used to make adhesives and binders in wallpaper paste, or note that cellulose is used as an inactive filler in tablets and as thickeners and stabilizers in many processed foods. Did I mention wallpaper paste? Does that sound like it might gum up your intestines? All of this is technically true, except the gumming up of your intestines. I offer it not as an indictment of cellulose, which I also use in some of my products, but to show that cellulose can be made to sound as dangerous and evil as magnesium stearate. But I wouldn't stoop to tactics like this. I consider them dishonest and unethical, and here's why. Food-grade cellulose from wood or cotton waste, like stearic acid from cottonseed oil, is so highly purified that any original contamination becomes irrelevant. Remember, that's what it means to purify something. So while Dr. Mercola points a finger at the source of stearic acid used in supplements, he fails to mention where cellulose comes from. In fact, he doesn't even admit that he uses cellulose, an inexpensive filler, in his supplements. Next, Dr. Mercola talks about contamination that can occur during the manufacture of magnesium stearate. Let's take that further. Contamination can occur during any step of the manufacturing process, from raw material right through to sealing the bottle. Quality manufacturers have evaluation checkpoints at all parts of the manufacturing process for this very reason. But let's look at this particular contamination claim. According to a report by the World Health Organization, several batches of magnesium stearate were contaminated with potentially harmful ingredients. The contamination was determined to be due to an incomplete cleaning of air milling equipment. This was a single raw material manufacturer and an isolated event, not a common occurrence in the manufacture of magnesium stearate. The contamination was self-reported by the manufacturer, and the World Health Organization found the contaminating substances pose no health risk. Quality supplement manufacturers test not only raw materials, but at many stages throughout the production process. Note that the contamination Mercola cites was not contamination of a nutritional supplement, but of a raw material. Raw materials can certainly be under par, and that's why quality manufacturers screen and test raw materials before accepting them. Next, Mercola tells his readers that magnesium stearate might be on the verge of getting axed from supplements by the Codex Committee on Food Additives. He paints this as more proof of the danger of magnesium stearate. What he doesn't tell us is that the Codex Committee wasn't removing magnesium stearate from supplements, but from the acceptable foods list, and not because of any danger, but because they didn't see the need for it in food. When food manufacturers pointed out that magnesium stearate is an important and safe anti-caking agent, it was reinstated. By the way, Mercola has repeatedly spoken out about Codex, telling us how dangerous they are and pointing out that our ability to access nutritional supplements is under siege by this organization. Everything he has told us about Codex should cause us to be wary of them. But when they considered removing magnesium stearate from food, not supplements, and not because of any safety issues, he misreports their intentions and makes them sound like what? Like they're a good thing? I don't think Dr. Mercola really believes that magnesium stearate, the magnesium salt of stearic acid, is dangerous. We've seen him repeatedly extol the virtues of stearic acid. We've seen that he sells products high in stearic acid. One thing we haven't seen is any substantiation of his claims of danger. Let's look at his reference list for this article and see what he has validated. Here is Dr. Mercola's reference list for the article. The first reference is the mouse T-cell study. One study in a petri dish using mouse T-cells that do not process stearic acid because they lack an enzyme that human T-cells have. The second reference documents the one instance of contaminated raw material. The third reference is an EPA page that doesn't pertain to anything in this article. The fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh references all pertain to titanium dioxide. They do not reference any claim about magnesium stearate, and in fact do not even pertain to this article. I don't always agree with my colleagues in the nutritional supplement industry. Some ingredients and doses based on the scientific literature are arguable. There may be information on both sides of the equation. But the evidence is not mixed on the safety of magnesium stearate. The evidence says that magnesium stearate, a simple salt of magnesium and stearic acid, is a safe and effective flow agent and helps maintain dose consistency. There really isn't any evidence to the contrary, as we have seen. Many respected manufacturers agree. Let me point out that if there was any evidence, even one single study, that showed magnesium stearate unsafe for humans, these quality manufacturers would drop the ingredient from their products immediately. Why? One word: liability. Some supplements are better than others, but no one is willing to risk product liability if they can avoid it. Although it doesn't prove the safety of magnesium stearate, the number of quality supplement manufacturers who would not risk liability or their valuable reputations is huge. Dr. Mercola even uses magnesium stearate in supplements. There is one point in this article that I wholeheartedly agree with. Dr. Mercola says, remember to do your homework first and use only those supplements that come from a reputable manufacturer. With the number of unsupported claims, misreported data, and downright deceptions in this article, we have every reason to wonder if Mercola himself falls into the reputable manufacturer category. Thank you for joining me. I'm Dr. Dana Myatt.